Hello everyone, welcome to the next Old and Word video, the next topic of discussion. As you can see behind me, I am in a very nice bluebell wood. I'm actually situated right down within the bluebells. Hyacinthioides non-scripta, of course, a nice beech wood. All the bluebells are out, it's really quite a fantastic place. I can see the video right now and it doesn't quite convey just how much blue there is everywhere. Really fantastic. It is, of course, it's the beginning of May now, so the bluebells will be here, and then they'll just vanish. So I wanted to get a video with the bluebells. I knew that there was a good bluebell wood about 20 minutes drive from where I live, so I thought I'd take the opportunity to record amongst the bluebells, especially when when I hope to do a video on aspiration. I'd actually come out previously. I had given maybe about maybe 10 to 15 minute talk on aspiration. It didn't go as well as I'd like, so I've actually got some notes this time just to make sure I cover everything. Now, on that point, I originally had the idea of making the Old and Word videos quite distinct topics, quite vague as well, quite open-ended. So I'll have a video just on dogs, I'll have a video just on aspiration, on architecture, on heritage. However, I think that because some of these topics are going to be so broad and open-ended, that they will probably require a second or maybe even a third part. So we'll see how it goes. Aspiration has been on my mind quite a lot recently, for a variety of different reasons and a variety of different aspects. It started to rain, but I am suitably sheltered beneath this beech tree. I have been thinking about aspiration for quite some time, and one of those reasons is that I dwelt on aspiration because I was writing an essay. Some of you may be aware that I've written an essay a couple of months ago, 3 months ago or so, on it was the title was developing an egocentric mindset through exploration of virtual worlds, and there was a sort of aspirational strain throughout that. This idea that we should look to something more, even if it's in the virtual. So there was that. And currently I'm actually working through an essay that I've been banging my head against. Feel like I'm banging my head against a brick wall, if I'm being honest. It's quite a complicated one. I'm not sure that I'm as learned as I'd like to be to really do the subject justice, and also it's tricky because the subject is sci-fi, and I'm not a sci-fi reader. Some of you may be aware that I definitely have neglected sci-fi, and that's actually one of the reasons I'm writing the essay. And essentially, I struggle with getting into sci-fi because I like sort of rustic natural aesthetics, and I've never really been enamored of technology and the technological aesthetic, the sort of sleek, unadorned aesthetic. Now, of course, you could say that obviously technology, machinery is not sleek, because it's highly ornate in a sense, and you might say that it's strange to compare art with machinery, but there seems to be a sort of aesthetic transference of the machine into the art object, and that's something that I talk about in the essay. It's this idea that I think we should not forget where we came from. We should not forget our origins, and it's just a suspicion of everything becoming technologized and digitized and sleek, sort of forgetting tradition in a way. But then there's, of course, biomorphic and zoomorphic architecture, which recalls animals and plants and whatnot. And there's also biomimetics as well, which is obviously the taking inspiration from animals for technology. So planes, obviously, birds, that sort of thing. So I've been thinking about aspiration in that sense, in an aesthetic sense, and that's really, I am quite interested in aesthetics, but just this idea of positivity and negativity as well. Obviously, I made a video not too long ago about this and reading and writing, and my how most of my stories that I write, they often, well, they can be dark and challenging, as I say on my website and other places. I often want to have characters um, that look towards something more positive and more beneficial. Um, for example, I'll just to give you an idea. I'll take so The Escapist is one story that I wrote a while ago about a prisoner who learns the value of escape by drawing beautiful things on the prison walls instead of dwelling on what he sees around him. He thinks that beauty is a sort of concession to falsehood in a way. He thinks that because the world is bad and he has gotten himself into a bad situation, that he should not aspire to anything more. And it's the same way I've written down, for example, with brutalism, this ridiculous notion that because the world is somehow ugly and bad and humans can be terrible people, humans can be evil, that we should somehow reflect that in our architecture, which is just ridiculous. It's a feedback loop. It's just if things look ugly, there will be more ugliness in the world, and then people will do more or do worse things. It's a ridiculous notion that we should. It makes me quite angry actually. It's actually a lot. It features a lot in my stories. This idea that we should not aspire to something more, and that we should make things ugly because that's somehow the way it is. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, I think. You could say that, and it frustrates me as well when you see descriptions of brutalism, and there's other architectural styles as well, but this idea that it's optimistic, it's anything but optimistic. So there's that. The Escapist is one of them, one story. Another one, of course, one of my favourite stories that I've written, it was actually the last one I wrote, was Dreams Made of Sand. I think I mentioned that briefly. It's this idea that even if a catastrophic event happens, we should go out of our way to remain positive, even if destruction is inevitable. We should look to better things. So, for example, I'll just give a spoiler. There's a family, a father who's an architect, a mother who's a botanist, and their son is imaginative. He likes creating things. And in this story, they go down to the beach. They choose the beach as their last place to go before this, the end of the world essentially occurs. And they, whilst everyone is leaving the beach as this great structure is coming down from the sky to obliterate the earth, they just simply work on their sandcastle and continue making things. And there's a lot of mentions and pointers and hinters and foreshadowing about ruination and decay. And the architect himself, he technically wanted to go to a cathedral as the last place that he visited before he would obviously die. But he chose to go to the beach with his family and to create in that way. So Dreams Made of Sand, of course, it's this idea that we should, even if things tend towards entropy and decay, you still should make. And the grander point is that we humans innately create. So that's Dreams Made of Sand there. The story that I'm working on at the moment, very much in line with the sci-fi essay that I'm doing. And the sci-fi, I should mention, the sci-fi working title for the essay is "You Can't Fly to Space in a Corinthian Column." It's this idea that the technology can only be a certain way, it can only be as it is, and it's not concerned with beauty. But I'm probably not go back to that. I should speak about this other story. So the last story that I am currently working on is it's called "Aspire for Arthur." That's the current working title for that story. The idea is that it's this boy, this young man, looking out at a modern skyscraper city or tower blocks in the background, in the horizon as well. Cranes and neon lights and all the rest of it. And he just the story essentially starts with his noticing a great, grand, majestic tower. I won't actually spoil it too much because it's not done, and I plan to send this to a few good friends and whatnot. But essentially, I can essentially summarize it by saying that this tower it features animal motifs, and it really evokes the past, and it speaks of beauty and sort of a higher transcendent purpose. So there's that story. That does have a dark ending as well. I plan for it to have a dark ending that speaks to the fact that beauty is eternal and ugliness eventually falls. I'll say that. So a lot of my stories are based on art and creation, I think. And I might as well mention, since this is a vlog about aspiration, but I may as well mention that I'm having some trouble with writing, publication in general, and various outlets and whatnot. I won't go into it too much. It's a cause for of some concern to me, but I'm planning not to go the route of magazines and journals anymore, really, for fiction at least. And I'm planning to create a self-published collection called Dreams Made of Sand and Other Stories, and that's that. The whole idea about that will be the theme that ties everything, all the stories together, will be creation, longing, and escape. So I just mentioned that because it's related to aspiration. And I really am interested in aesthetics, despite the fact that I'm a writer. I do have a background in art as well, I suppose. But I am interested in aesthetics to the point of having art books and treatises on architecture and the philosophy of beauty, for example, with Roger Scruton's works. So there's that. I do like the idea of going back to uni, not to study ecology, which is my background, and countryside management as well, but something related to heritage or aesthetics. I'm not sure if you can even get a course on aesthetics, but something perhaps even to do with imagination, the psychology of imagination and creation, and it's something that's very important to me. It seems to be the sort of thing that ties everything together. What else can we talk about? I have some very broad and quite obscure things to mention, but just to go back to aspiration through fiction and sort of other worlds, I'm very much interested in. Well, I guess we could talk about MMORPGs for a second. Although I don't play games anymore, I don't particularly find them fun, and I much more enjoy reading. I do just adore and find something very enriching and warming about just. It makes me sort of smile even now, even though I'm out here in this woodland. It's beautiful. I've always been enamored of, for example, World of Warcraft's zones, their landscapes, or the biology, the biomes of World of Warcraft, and in more recent times, of course, my interest in architecture has blossomed as well. So I very much just like spending time in, or I did. It's a tricky thing. It's I can see the benefits of video games. I can see the benefits of virtual worlds. I just don't often play them anymore because I don't really engage with the mechanics of games, the stats and the numbers, all that sort of stuff. I like the immersion in the aesthetics and the atmosphere of games, but not so much the worlds themselves, the artistic direction, but not so much the actual gameplay. Um, so, seeing as we're talking about aspiration, I was going to cover this in another video, but it's all related, I think. So I played World of Warcraft, this massively multiplayer online role playing game, when I was about 12 to 13 years old in 2006. I started in November 14th or 15th, 2006. And since then, because I grew up with the game, and because I grew up with notions of the fantastic and the otherworldly, I've always been interested in sort of ideal realms and portals and gateways to something more, and that definitely infuses everything I write, I think. Um, and so I remember I speak about this in my essay, um, in my ecocentrism through developing ecocentrism through exploration of virtual worlds. I talk about this extensively. That I essentially my second home was a place called Teldrassil, um, this grand island tree, very much inspired by Yggdrasil of Norse mythology. Um, it's stuck with me to the point where it feels almost like. So I remember doing meditations when I was a lot younger. So this has stuck with me for a while. Sort of meditative guides, and they they often told you to envisage a place and personalize it. So it's a sort of room or a space that you come back to, and there's a sort of dreamlike quality to that. And with this place, with Teldrassil, this island home of the night elves, the Calderae, I get this sense that this because I grew up with this in this place in this this magical forest, and so it's always been a sort of locus of imagination for me in a way. It's something that I think I will probably think about till my dying day, if I'm being honest. It's for my brother and for my friend as well, my best friend, who you've seen on the channel actually, of course. Um, it's very much it speaks to that as well for them. So Teldrassil. I've always been interested in sort of the ideal in this idea that you can leave. It's unfortunate in several respects that you can leave this world for something better. However, as I say in my essay, not the sci-fi one, but the MMORPG ecocentrism essay, this world can only be as it is, and so it is, and obviously because other worlds, fantastical worlds, depictions of other worlds cannot ever be. This world is clearly superior. However, that only goes so far. I think it's an unfortunate thing. Sometimes I feel bad for wanting to spend time in Azeroth or any other or Arda, for example, when this world is it's the issue with escapism. This idea that you should accept what actually is. However, as we know, and as you may feel as well, this world is not particularly concerned with beauty. Natural nature, of course, um, is where I would find most beauty if I was to seek it out, of course. And there are of course little pockets of beauty in cathedrals and old churches and even a ruined abbey or whatever it might be. However, that's all very much linked to a specific past, obviously, so Christendom and whatnot, and even with Islamic art or whatever it might be. Nature, I guess, is sort of it's untied to any culture, of course. It is just as it is. So in a sense, it's sort of transcendent. But it's an unfortunate thing that we don't value beauty as much, and that's something that really frustrates me, if I'm being honest. I seem to think about it a surprising amount, despite the fact that I'm not an artist. I'm not. I think I'm visually driven, but I think about it a lot. Whenever I see Tokyo or New York or wherever it might be, and there's just these great slabs plastered over with advertisements, and there's neon lights, and there's, of course, in London with the Gherkin or whatever it's called, the Shard. It just and so just I realise I'm wandering quite a bit. It's such a broad subject that I will naturally tend to wander and go off in different paths. But just to go back to video games, virtual worlds for a moment. Um, I used to, although I don't like playing games for the actual the game playing aspect, for the mechanics, and I do value depictions of other worlds, and I think it's the attempt to create something better, even if it's virtual, even if it's not real. It's a reflection of what we value. So, for example, there's a lovely, truly beautiful um, landscape, place, location in World of Warcraft called the Isle of Quel'Danas, and it's if you Google it, you will see that it's this beautiful. Um, I'm not quite sure how to describe it. Everything is very vibrant and colourful, and it's pleasant in the highest regard. It's not like this. It's not like a rustic woodland or anything like that. It's very much of the built environment. It's very much it's a blood elf settlement. Um, but it's just it for me. It almost typifies how things could be. It's so unlike anything that we have in the real world. Um, these great pillars with golden of red ribbons and golden sort of winged motifs, and it's just beautiful. And of course, that's just one example. You could take just about any sort of fantastical location, and it will most likely be more beautiful than most of our built environments. I find that I feel like cathedrals, and although I'm not um, a Christian, I feel like cathedrals are the only real islands of beauty that we have that are on a very high level. So of course you get secular buildings that are beautiful. For example, museums and galleries and whatnot, the British Museum, the London National Art Gallery, things like this. But again, it's always just little pockets. There is the difficulty, and I fully realise this, that it sometimes comes into a matter of aesthetic preference and subjectivity. Of course, I'm sure there are people out there that see sort of sleek modern aesthetics. They see huge monumental glass towers as being they might get chills. They might even tear up if they look at a building like that, of that type. I just can't see it, and that's actually something that I just can't experience that. It's something that I write in the essay as well, but I won't go into it because it's too specific. It's to do with adornment and sort of texture and variation, and just recalling nature, and just, it's too much to go into, I think. Um, but I think I'll end on one quite serious topic for me, and it's something that inspires me endlessly. Um, I wasn't intending to discuss this particular subject, but it's very much related. Gives a good example. So as well as being interested in other worlds and portals and gateways to fantastic depictions of other worlds, rather, um, I I always hold to an almost godlike conception of well, it's going to sound strange, and there's only two people in the world that will actually understand it. But I've often considered my so I'll say that I grew up with playing World of Warcraft, of course, and I grew up experiencing this grand, fantastical world of Azeroth through the eyes of a character, a night elf called Zanturi. And you will be aware that I do have a channel called Zanturi. And the reason I mention this is because although he started in a video game, in a very trivial sense, he started in one particular video game created by a particular company, Blizzard Entertainment, and there was nothing more to it than his being a night elf warrior and adventuring through the lands of Azeroth, and it's pouring down now. Adventuring through the lands of Azeroth, it became something more. It became something much higher, to the point where I would incorporate Zanturi into various stories, and it's developed to a point where it almost feels like, again, like a godlike conception of this character. I don't want to imply that it is on the same level as, for example, God, the Christian God. But I can see, in a sense, that this is how it might develop. When I think of Zanturi, when I think of the principle of Zanturi and what he stands for, and I realise this is quite vague, but it's almost, I can get quite emotional, if I'm being honest. It's this idea of the adventurer, a personification of the fantastic, I think. It's quite an interesting experience. It's pouring down all around me. Hopefully you can still hear me. A personification of the fantastic, of the imagination itself. I've put all. It's almost like putting all of nature and mythology and aspiration into a single personification, and that is Zanturi. I may elaborate on that on another video. There may be a second part to this, but as it is pouring down, I think I'll leave it there. I'm happy with this video. I've talked about quite a lot of things. It's a lot longer than the other video that I did. So hopefully you enjoyed that video. This has been Taylor. It's been Old Word. Till next time.